In chapter 7, the last chapter of the Sermon on the Mount, we hear mostly famous quotes from Jesus Christ, like, "Judge not, that ye be not judged. Why behold the mote that is in your brother's eye, but not the beam that is in yours? Don't give what is holy unto dogs, nor cast pearls before swine, for fear that they trample over them. Ask and it will be given, knock and it will be opened. Do unto others as you wish them do unto you. Enter through the narrow gate, for broad is the gate that leads to destruction, and narrow is the gate that leads to life. Beware of false prophets, wolves in sheep's clothing. Good trees bring good fruit, whereas corrupt trees bring evil fruit. Many will come to me and say, Have we not prophesied and done wonderful works in your name? To which Jesus answers, I never knew you. Depart from me, workers of iniquity. Whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him unto a wise man, which built his house upon a rock that withstands the heavy rain and flood. Whereas those that hear these sayings and do them not shall be likened unto a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand, and the sand doesn't withstand the flood and rain." When Jesus finishes these sayings, his audience realizes that he's speaking as one having authority, and not as the scribes speak. In chapter 8, there's a lot of movement, a lot of action, implied here visually in the airborne wands. Chapter 8 and 9 are mostly demonstrations of Jesus' power through miracles. The chapter begins with Jesus coming down from the mountain, great multitudes having followed him, where he heals a leper on the spot. Later in Capernaum, a centurion comes to Jesus and asks him to heal a slave of his that is very sick at home. But the centurion doesn't feel that his home is worthy of Jesus' presence. Instead, he asks Jesus only to say the word, and from that word he is convinced his servant will be healed. Jesus marvels at his great faith, claiming that he's never seen anyone in Israel with such faith as his, and the centurion's servant is instantly healed. Jesus then prophesies that many will come from all over the world, adopting the religion of Abraham, but that the children of the kingdom themselves will be cast out into outer darkness. He then goes on to heal many that are sick and many that are possessed, fulfilling Isaiah's prophecy that says, Himself took our infirmities and bare our sicknesses. To a scribe that claims he wants to follow him, Jesus warns him that the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And to another disciple that asks if he may go bury his father before he follows him, Jesus tells him to let the dead bury their own dead. Then Jesus and his disciples sail out into the Sea of Galilee, and Jesus falls asleep, and a great storm arises, and the disciples wake him up, certain that they'll perish. "Why are you so fearful, O ye of little faith?" he says. He rebukes the storm, and the waters immediately calm down. When they get to shore, 2 possessed men come out from the tombs, saying, "What have we to do with you, Jesus, Son of God?" They finally beg Jesus that if they're to be cast out, that they be sent into a nearby herd of swine. Jesus says go, and the whole herd jumps into the sea drowning. Having heard of this feat, the people of the nearby city arrive, and they tell Jesus to leave their coasts. In chapter 9, we see many witnesses to Jesus' miracles that are attempting to vilify and isolate him. Jesus returns to his own city, and the people bring him a sick, bedridden man who has the palsy. He tells the man to be of good cheer, that his sins are forgiven. Some nearby scribes inwardly believe this to be blasphemous talk, and Jesus, reading their minds, tells them that the Son of Man has power on earth to forgive sins, and then orders the sick man to arise and pick up his bed and go home, which he does. Soon after, Jesus comes across Matthew, working as one of those despised tax collectors, and he tells him to follow him. Later, some Pharisees are reproaching him of eating with sinners. It's the sick that need a physician, he tells them, not the healthy. I didn't come to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. Then it's the turn of the disciples of John the Baptist to be offended at his and his own disciples' lack of fasting. He says, "Can the children of the bride chamber mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken from them, and then they shall fast." When Jesus goes to the house of a powerful man whose daughter has just died, Jesus tells the crowd that the girl is only sleeping. The crowd laughs at him and scorns him, but Jesus takes the girl by the hand and she arises. Jesus also instantaneously heals 2 blind men simply because they believe he could. And when Jesus casts out a devil from a deaf and dumb man, the Pharisees accuse him of devil work. After going about like this, preaching and healing throughout the land, many cities and villages, Jesus sees that the people are like lost sheep without a shepherd, which brings us back to the Old Testament book of Ezekiel, chapter 34, where God condemns the shepherds of Israel for neglecting their flock. And God says, foreshadowing the coming of Jesus, I, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out. And I will set up a shepherd over them, and he shall feed them, even my servant David. He shall feed them, and he shall be their shepherd. Back in Matthew 9, Jesus says to his disciples, the harvest truly is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray therefore that the Lord of the harvest, that he will send forth his laborers into his harvest. Which brings us into chapter 10, the calling forth of the laborers. And here he's, at the end of 9, he says, bring forth the laborers. And in chapter 10, he brings them forth. I love this part. He says to pray that the laborers come because the harvest is huge. And the disciples don't get it. And then in the next chapter, he says, basically, you're the laborers. I'm sending you out.